Welcome to Motorcycle Ways. Today I'm looking at throttle control on the bike. The throttle is probably one of the most important controls you'll use on the bike. So taking the time to learn how to use it correctly is well worth the investment. So let's take a look. So operating the throttle in a jerky manner, such as this, rapidly opening the throttle and rapidly closing it, is a poor technique. It will result in the bike becoming jerky and unstable and can be quite dangerous. So this leads to what they call whiskey throttle as well. Whiskey throttle can happen with a lot of unexperienced riders and new riders. That's when they have a grip on the bars too tightly and suddenly open the throttle rapidly. So when you open the throttle suddenly or rapidly, like that, even just a bit on a powerful bike, then the natural reaction is you're going to get pushed back in the bike like that, because the force will pull you back. And then when you're pulled back like that, your arms are outstretched fully, and that's going to open the throttle fully. And because you have a tight grip, you don't want to let go, you're not going to release the throttle. So with a fully open throttle, the bike is just going to go up and perform a wheelie, an unwanted wheelie, and go out from under you because you cannot release it. So that's what they call whiskey throttle, something you want to look out for and try and avoid at all costs. You can see why it's important to have smooth throttle control. Not only when you're rolling on the throttle, but when you're rolling it off as well. So when you roll off the throttle, also known as engine braking, you're decreasing the power to the engine. So when you do that too rapidly, your natural reaction is you're going to go forward. So you're putting all your weight on the front of the bike and you're taking the weight off the rear of the bike. So you do that too rapidly, coming up to a junction or a turn, and this causes an imbalance in the bike. So it doesn't really need to be there. So if you're taking a turn and you have the imbalance, then that can cause a skid or slide or something that shouldn't happen, that you don't want happening. So that's why it's important that you roll off the throttle nice and smoothly and plan it. When you're coming up, you should be planning your turn and planning how you slow down and reading the road ahead of you. So I know it's not always possible. You'll have an emergency stops or something come out in front of you. There's times you would have to roll off it rapidly. But in general, most times, you should be able to plan ahead and operate the throttle smoothly. That won't cause that imbalance and leave you in a safer situation rather than putting yourself at risk. So one of the problems with throttle control is hand position. The position in which you hold the throttle makes all the difference on how you control the bike. So let's take a look at that now. So when a lot of riders grab hold of the throttle, they grab it in this position. And you can see the way my hand is, it's a high wrist. I'm grabbing the throttle and you open the throttle and that may feel fine while you're riding along, comfortable position, but then you want to come to a stop. So just a close-up view there, you can see I'm closing the throttle. As I said, closing the throttle is engine braking. So you're coming to a stop. Your first point of braking is engine braking. So that's closing the throttle. And next we grab the front brake. So you can see the problem. Your fingers are hitting the brake lever. Your hand is too far forward. So in order to catch the brake, I have to move my hand off the throttle and bring it around. to grab the front brake, like so. So this is time consuming. If you want to stop in a hurry, your hand is in this position by the time you close the throttle, and you're hitting the front brake. So it's not ideal. So a better position is to have a straight wrist. Keep your hand and wrist straight when you grab the throttle, rather than a high wrist like that. You're keeping it straight. Then you open the throttle. Throttle open, so we're closing the throttle. And grab the front brake. Much easier. Let me see that again. The throttle open, close, and grab the front brake. So it's an easier and safer technique to have your hand in the right position. So another problem with the high wrist is when you go to close your throttle and grab your brake, you realize it's not easy to grab the brake, your finger's in the wrong position, so you've got to pull your hand back. You could inadvertently open the throttle as you're going to grab your brake. So you're braking and you have an open throttle at the same time. So this is not good. Your front wheel wants to stop, your rear wheel wants to power on. So this won't end well. So that's an easy mistake to make with the high wrist. So it's something you don't want to get in the habit of doing. So the best way to learn how to control the throttle properly is just practice. And the way to do that is in a car park or parking lot or your backyard if you have room or there's nobody around and you have it to yourself, and just ride along in first gear and use the throttle smoothly, control it. If you can do it in first gear is when your bike has the most torque. So when you hit the throttle in first gear, it's going to respond rapidly. So if you can control it in first gear, then you won't have any problems with the other gears. So in first gear, around the yard, and just smoothly operate the throttle on and off. And as well as that, use your, get into the habit of getting into the correct hand position. Don't use a high wrist. Keep your wrist straight and practice using the front brake while closing the throttle and getting on the front brake, and see how that works out. So these are our ways in which you can avoid whiskey throttle and doing a lot of damage to the bike and to yourself and maybe to someone else. So practice that and get these bad habits out of the system and get into these good habits. And once you obtain them, you will have them for life. So it's well worth doing. So that's it for this one. And if you have any questions or comments on that, please leave them below. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, on how your throttle control went, and if you had bad experiences or good experiences, or where you learned it. So let me know. And thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.